So we have Renzo and Rickard. Do you guys want to test your audio?
Hello.
Hi, we hear you,
Can
Elsa.
Okay.
Yes. And we have Yushan joining. And this chair scheduled the interim on right in the Chinese New Year's Eve, and I wasn't expecting to see her. So thanks, Yushan, for joining. All right, we start to have people in. Paul is there. Good.
So, Paul, did you want to do any announcements or anything near the start of the slot?
No, I thought the two of you were going to do that.
It's more efficient if you do it.
I just signed the paperwork.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Renzo.
Hi, Renzo.
Hi, Marisa, Stephen.
Okay, I guess we're 2 minutes past. So,
Yep.
Marisa, why don't you take the lead?
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, hello everyone. This is the Lake Working Group interim meeting. We are January 28th, and before we start, we have a big announcement to make. So I would like to thank Stephen, who decided to step down as co-chair for all the years, for these couple of years that he has been with us, and that he's been steering the wheel. So thank you, Stephen. Stephen will be stepping down as co-chair of Lake, and Renzo, who is here with us for the first time, will be replacing him. So this meeting, this will be our first meeting where we'll kind of do the handover. So I guess, Stephen, for the purpose of this meeting, you can still act as chair, and then from the next meeting on, we can take on with Renzo officially on board, since this is the status in the data tracker at this moment, I believe. Paul, is that okay with you, or?
Yeah, that's great. And again, Stephen, thanks for hanging in there for us and putting your efforts into other working groups. It's greatly appreciated to have you around.
No problem. Happy to do it, and happy to cause you problems in other working groups as well. Never mind.
Yeah. All right. So so with that, I guess we get started. So as you all know, this is an IETF meeting, so the note well applies. Anything that you say is considered a contribution to the IETF standards process. If you are aware of any patent claims, you are kindly requested to disclose those or not participate in the discussion. And finally, I wish everyone a productive meeting. Yes. So the agenda for today's meeting is the proposed agenda is as follows. Right now we are in the administrivia, and Giovanni has kindly let me know that he won't be able to join the meeting today. So I propose we give floor to Christian. So we swap slots number 2 and 3 for the, and then I will give an update on behalf of Giovanni. So Christian first, Giovanni second, then slot by Marco, led by Marco, followed by Elsa on the PSK work that was adopted, and then finally, before wrapping up, we will do a summary of the adoption call that was just ended yesterday on draft song Lake RA, and then we will have just a discussion about the next steps and whether we want to have a session on during the IETF 122 in Bangkok. With that, I will pass I will stop sharing the slides and start sharing Christian's slides. Let me applying generator extension. Here it is.
Well, we're assuming there's no other agenda bash, right? So let's just
Yes,
pause.
I forgot to ask that. Is there any other agenda bash?
No, good.
I
Okay.
hear none, and I passed control over the slides to Christian. So Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'll give a brief update on Greece and ask the questions that we need there. So Greece was recently adopted. Thanks a lot for that. And the purpose of this document is still to make sure that we can and do exercise the extension points to not lose them, which is something that we've learned from TLS, where Greece was originally introduced, that this is a useful thing to have. Two questions came up during the adoption call that I want to discuss here. One is that can we do anything better on the side of who can grease the suits, given the side suites, given that only the initiator might easily be a constraint device? I don't think that there is anything that we can do because the protocol is simple, and that just means that we don't have too much flexibility in there. And if there's nothing that, if some role cannot exercise a particular extension point, then they just can't. But I'm very open to suggestions there. The slightly, in my opinion, harder question is, can we exercise the extension point of ad hoc authentication credential types, which are part of a cozy header map? Originally, I thought that we can't do anything there at all, because if someone adds something there, the mechanism, or if there's only an unknown item in there, the ad hoc just fails. But I recently learned that there can, in theory, be multiple things in there, but I don't know and sufficiently understand, and even don't know where to look up whether it is allowed for there to be like other items that have ignored by default semantics. So what are the semantics of multiple keys? Like, is the recipient of a credential expected to process anything that they understand and take a credential there and like ignore the rest, or is this mandatory to understand? Depending on what the outcome is, I'll be happy to add more extension points, but I'll have to understand that, and I don't know how to find out. So that's something where I need input from the working group. Yep, those are my two questions, and that's my last slide. So do you have answers for me?
So I don't hear any comments. So maybe just a question. So because this is quite short draft, like what do you expect to how many revisions do you expect to do before we are ready for working group last call? And what are the things that you see that are pending before working group last call can be issued?
That depends on basically the answers to those two questions. If the answers to both are like, yep, we can't extend there without requiring the peer to understand what is going on, which is defeating the purpose of Greece, then the answer is there is nothing more we can do. And from my point of view, that document is ready. Modulo, like removing that item as an open question from the text. If it turns out that we can exercise those points, I think it should be, or especially the second one, I think it should be relatively easy to just add an allocation for a few cozy headers and then be done with that. So like, I'd expect the working group last call to happen on a -01 or -02.
Sounds good. Thank you. So I would encourage you then to start an email discussion specifically to revive this thread on the mailing list, so that we get some input from the working group members, participants on these topics.
Did that yesterday evening.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Do we have any other questions? So Joran has entered the queue. Joran, yes.
Yeah. Just on the second question, I think I just understood it as you wrote in the email that it's just a matter of allocating cozy headers. If we can sort of reserve some cozy header for this purpose. So we just need to decide whether we're going to do that or not.
But
what's
if this is an extension point we can use, I'd at least like to have some reference to point to where it says that a recipient of an ID cred that sees items in there that they do not understand must ignore those, because if we don't have a reference for that, I can't in good conscience make the recommendation to exercise that extension point, because the purpose is for this to not interfere with operations. If it doesn't interfere with operations justifiedly, then we can't grease there.
So just to clarify, so the issue would be that you are not able to ignore those, because that would mean that you are you're basically breaking what is assumed by.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, that might be a problem, because you are allowed to have multiple credential identifiers. So if you would somehow add a non-existent credential type there, that might be difficult to handle. Okay, I think I see the problem. Okay, thanks.
All right, Stephen.
And coming back to Stephen's question on interoperability that was raised on the chat, I'm happy to run interop tests. So I know for sure that this will fail with the current Lakers implementation. So there will definitely already be implementation work going on triggered by that. I don't know how large an interop test you will want to have.
So I don't count. My opinion no longer counts, so don't worry about that. But given that it's in the nature of Greece to either work or break stuff, it's probably advisable to try and see what you break before you publish the document.
Yes, so I definitely want to try it out, but I have no concrete plan on how many implementations to run this through.
Yeah, it might be a nice little hackathon project or something at some point.
Sounds good. See you virtually in Bangkok then.
All right, Joran, you're still in the queue. Did you want to say something or? No, okay, sounds good. So I propose we go ahead with the next item on the agenda. This is the draft auths, which Giovanna was supposed to present. I will be filling up on his behalf. So just doing a quick summary of what was discussed during IETF 121. And he has a single slide essentially on the next steps. So essentially, as my recollection of this discussion with Christian was that we should be aiming for an authorization of ad hoc that is generic, that shouldn't be constrained only to the enrollment use case, and that the draft should reflect this fact. This means, in terms of what Giovanna wanted to update, is that we can have both forward and reverse flow, meaning having a new subsection in section 4 that discusses this, essentially generically describing the protocol in both flows, and moving the network enrollment use case to a special section as section 5, essentially, and where we could, what is now the optimization strategies, to use those as the section on the enrollment use case and instantiate those that use case with the optimizations that make the most sense in that case. So this is the list of next steps proposed by Giovanna. I'm just filling this on behalf of him. So please accept my apologies if there is any mistakes that I made during this presentation. So Christian says that next steps for all sounds good to him. Thank you, Christian. Do we have any other comments on this quite short presentation that I can take? I hear none. So with that, I propose we go ahead with the next agenda item. And this is, I believe, Marco and coordinating the use of application profiles. So I will be filling in the notes while Marco is presenting. Marco, the floor is yours. Let me just give you the control over the slides. There you go.
Malaysia. Hi everyone, this is just a quick update on the app profiles draft, just in version 0 after the recent adoption. And to recap, the problem we are solving here is the ad hoc peers, in order to run ad hoc, have to agree on a number of parameters or in ways to run the protocol. Something can be negotiated in band, but other things just have to be pre-agreed, and that boils down to following one or another ad hoc application profile, as the concept was defined in the ad hoc RFC. So this document is intended to facilitate for the ad hoc peers the discovery and the agreement on how to run ad hoc considering the application profiles to use. And there are different means to discover, represent, and spread the knowledge of supported profiles and features described by those profiles. So the draft was adopted during the calls for adoption after Dublin meeting. Thanks for your support. And we are now working on the editor's copy on the GitHub. You can find some activities there too. So we are not ready yet for a new revision, but that should be ready on time for the IETF 122 cutoff. So the next slides are just a summary of what has happened in the editor copy and on the main major point that we plan for version 1. But other than obvious editorial improvements, it was mostly about deciding where to place the definition of some already existing parameters between this document and the NACE document, where they felt pertaining better. The definition of some parameters related to some of the features that were presented originally in the Trust Anchor int document. And then the major point we are working on advertising supported ad hoc features and profiles in the ad hoc messages themselves. That was also quickly raised at the end of the Dublin presentation. So starting on what is already on the editor copy, and the exact points that are there already are marked with a red asterisk here. These are information elements that we noted and agreed pertain better to the ad hoc information object defined in another document in the ACE working group. I list them here. There are 5, and 4 of those were actually, as planned, moved out of these documents in terms of definition. That was moved together with the necessary IANA actions in the ACE document. But of course, they remain useful and usable here too. We take the opportunity also to fix a typo. Co-op CF was supposed to be co-op CT, because CT is the way we abbreviate content format in core and co-op. But the 5th one, appprof, even though it belongs to that same ad hoc information object, is definitely better to define and request for registration here in this document as conveying the numeric identifier of an ad hoc application profile. But that's about entries in an ad hoc information object. But beside those, we have corresponding target attributes that can be used in web links. They're just mappable one-to-one, as you can see. And well, here the action was pretty much about fixing the typo CF2CT, because those feel better to be defined here in this document instead. Okay, speaking of parameters again, 2 features related on trust anchors were proposed in another document, Lake TA hint, that was submitted a bit before the Dublin meeting. And as to one of its features, at least, it was about advertising the supported trust anchors by a certain ad hoc peer. And putting this information in the context of an ad hoc application profile means, I believe, saying that whatever peer adheres to that profile is essentially stating to support those trust anchors that are practically expected to be certificates of CAs. So this particular feature was now moved into this document with a corresponding parameter, trust anchors, as presented part of the EDOC information object, again with the same semantics and encoding intended in the other TA hint document, but now also as corresponding link target attributes. And I could think of one target attribute per type of credential that would be used as trust anchor. And the original idea that we preserved here was to consider only references to trust anchors and not values. So that's why only UUID, KD, and the thumbprint or URI pointers to C509 or an X509 certificate. So the target attributes are defined in this document together with all the required IANA actions around the registration. Okay, so from here on, you can't find content yet in the editor's copy, but that's our next steps, building on this early design. The current status is that we can express an EDOC application profile piece by piece or pointed by integer identifier as an EDOC application profile object, so a canonical representation as a CBOR map that uses the same namespace of the EDOC information object from the ACE document in terms of CBOR integer identifiers. And then also the two means that I mentioned in the previous slides, so the EDOC information object in itself and the target attributes for web linking. And the idea is to either point to a profile by its integer identifier or spell out the supported features piece by piece, like in a menu. And we realized a bit before the Dublin meeting and mentioned at the end of the Dublin meeting that there's actually a further venue of advertisement, and it's the EDOC messages themselves. So we initially thought only of message 1 and an error message in reply to message 1, but Christian rightly noticed that it was useful to consider also message 2. And for message 1 and 2, it would be about relying on the new EAD item, but then we still have the idea of the EDOC error message 2 when it is specifically a reply to abort the EDOC session after receiving EDOC message 1. And at the end of the day, it's about specifying the same things that we specify with option B above. And if you think of the EDOC peer sending a message that includes this information, the peer is basically talking about itself and telling what it supports to the other peer. So again, we have to nail down the detail, but this is a sketch of the design and the intended encoding. When it's about EDOC message 1 and 2, it's about an EAD item, only one, that is possible to use in either message. I think it should be fine to use it only in non-critical way, to keep the EAD label only with its native positive value. As to the EAD value transporting that information, we are thinking of a CBOR sequence, more details below, but unfortunately we cannot put it as is in the EAD value that has to be a CBOR bystring. So we need the bystring to wrap the CBOR sequence. The CBOR sequence in itself, we imagine as composed of items that can be either of these three things. As a first case, an integer, that is the numeric identifier of the profile supported. As a second case, an array of integers where the first integer of the array identifies the profile and the following integers are EAD labels of EAD items supported in addition to those natively supported according to that profile. And the third variant is the piece-by-piece indication of features supported by the EDOC peer. And those can be expressed using an EDOC information object according to its original semantics. So, of course, using, again, its namespace of identifiers, modulo some particular entries of that object that don't make particular sense in this case. When using the EDOC error message instead, and again, only reply to message 1, that should be about a new error code to be defined. Error info should convey really the same information that we had in the ID items, only in a slightly more efficient way, because the CDDL definition admits any CBOR type, so the sequence as is should work with no need for wrapping into a CBOR bystring. And of course, this is an ad hoc error message. So you need ad hoc to have failed in the first place to resort to this. And I would say for reasons that don't have already a more appropriate error code to use. For example, in case there is a failure in negotiating the cipher suite. Okay, so our next steps is basically preparing version 1, mostly taking care of the major point I've just discussed on advertising the supported profiles and features in the messages, and some comments we also received during the working group adoption call. That's my last slide. Any question, comment today or later on is welcome. Thank you.
So do we have any questions for Marco? I hear none, so I propose we move on with the next agenda item. Thank you, Marco. So the next item on the agenda is the PSK draft that was recently adopted by the working group. So PSK authentication, and our presenter will be Elsa. Elsa, let me pass you the control over the slides. Okay, you should have the control now.
Yep, okay. Okay, so hello everyone. I will be presenting now the updates that have been made after the adoption of the ad hoc PSK draft after the IETF in Dublin. So the goal of this presentation will be basically, well, present the current status. So for instance, right now we only have one of the variants in the draft. So we removed the PSK1 and we only kept PSK2. I will present some corrections and that have been made, and then the next steps regarding the draft. So just as a reminder, PSK2 is the variant in which we are sending the credential identifier encrypted in message 3 rather than sending it in the clear in message 1. And this is the message flow corresponding to this variant. Some of the corrections that have been made, some of them were just like little mistakes. So first of all, I added all the hyperlinks to the references. Then in section 2, conventions and definitions, I added the reference to the concepts and terms that the reader has to be familiar with, which were not added before. In section 3, which is the protocol, there's a change. So in red is what was previously stated, green is the correction that has been made. So it was said that ID cred PSK allows retrieval of cred PSK, which is a COSI object. So this has been changed to COSI key compatible authentication credential that contains the PSK preset key. Then in the credentials section, there's also been a reformulation of the definition of the cred PSK. So right now it's instead of being a COSI key compatible credential, it's now extended to a COSI key compatible authentication credential, such as CBOR web token or CWT claim set. Then in section 4, in the key derivation, there was a typo in the derivation of the key stream 3. It said that the length had to be the key length, but that's actually the credential identifier length, since this is the key that is going to be used to encrypt the ID cred PSK. Then section 5, there's been a change in the title, so we just removed the second part, which says differences with RFC 9528. That's a small correction. And then in message 3, here there's some debate on what should be the structure. So there are currently 2 options. And so initially message 3 was defined to be a bit string. Well, this is a mistake. And now in the new approach, we've been discussing 2 possibilities. So in both cases, ciphertext 3 will be a CBOR sequence, but there are two possibilities of describing it. So one option is to define it as a CBOR sequence composed of two elements, and this like ciphertext 3A, ciphertext 3B, and this will be deviation with respect to the RFC 9528 of ad hoc. The second option would be to describe it as a CBOR sequence of one element, which is ciphertext 3, which is also a CBOR sequence composed of two elements. And this will imply that we need an extra wrapping, which adds some bytes to message 3. Yeah, so this is something to be discussed. Also, in this same section of message 3, it was stated that ciphertext 3 is a concatenation of two different ciphertexts. This has been corrected to, I think, well, this is a mistake, sorry. So option 1 should be option 2 and vice versa. So in option 1, ciphertext 3 is a CBOR sequence, and we have ciphertext 3A and ciphertext 3B. And in the option 2, ciphertext 3 would be a CBOR byte string with value the binary representation of a CBOR sequence composed of two elements. Then also ciphertext 3A is defined as a CBOR byte string, not a CBOR sequence as it was defined before. And ciphertext 3B is corrected to be the ciphertext of the Gaussian crypt object rather than the Gaussian crypt object. And then also in the transcript hash 4, there was also a typo. It was said that it used the plaintext 3, but there's actually no plaintext 3, so this should be plaintext 3B, since plaintext 3A it's actually the credential identifier, which is already used. So this has been already corrected. Yeah, so those are the corrections that have been made. And then the next step, I guess, would be to call for formal analysis in the working group. And yeah, that's everything on my side.
Thank you, Elsa. So we had two reviews of this draft that were published on the mailing list. So I thank the authors of these reviews. So these were Marco and Francisco, I believe. But before we call for formal analysis, Elsa, I would just like to make sure that the protocol is stable, that before we ping these people and we invest their time, we just need to make sure that that the protocol is stable. So Joran had a comment. Joran, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah. I had a chat with John, and we thought that we should actually do another round of the protocol before calling for formal analysis. So
okay.
Yeah. So I don't have a date, but I'd like to take another look, and John as well.
Okay, sounds good. So this is okay. This is good input. So let's maybe aim for the IETF 122 timeline to have another draft published. Then we can present there, and potentially after that, call for formal analysis. I think that would be a good timeline if you agree with that.
Could you remind me, Malisha, how was the process when we did the call the last time for formal analysis?
So last time,
was there any coordination between the different people, or was it just?
So yes, there was. So the first step was that we decided to freeze the document within the working group. So we published a formal email within the working group that was kind of generically written so that it could be forwarded by peer-to-peer in the community of formal verification. And once this was done, we coordinated with different people on who does what in terms of ad hoc, who does method. Some people did method 3, some people did method 0, and they studied different. So there was coordination on that. But here, since it's simpler, it is simpler, but we still would like to be sure that the protocol is stable, that we don't launch this on an unstable version of the protocol, and that we want to essentially follow the same path as we did last time. So essentially an email freezing the protocol in the data tracker, so not publishing any versions until the formal analysis is done, and then coordinating with people off list in order to do that analysis, with them inviting them, of course, over to present their findings during the working group meetings. So I hope I have summarized. This is how it worked out last time, and we hope to have as successful process with this protocol as well.
Yeah. So and if we have people interested in this, they should then wait for the call, or can at least wait for the stable version to.
So yes, we just want to avoid doing investing their cycles on something that is not stable. So that's why, yeah. For me, it's the equivalent of working group last call, pretty much.
But is there something like they should show interest, or is it just it's open for anyone to?
I would a priori say it's open to anyone, as long as they would like to present to the working group their findings, but then it's up to them how they want to publish their results. Each of the teams last time had their own publication strategy, targeting different venues and conferences in the formal verification community. So I would leave it up to that. I would leave it to that with this protocol as well.
I just meant on the coordination aspect, where I mean, assume that there are multiple researchers that want to do similar type of analysis. Can we coordinate that, or can we help them to coordinate that so they wouldn't be overlap? I mean, luckily there were no overlaps previously, and that I don't think that was a miracle. I suppose there was like communication between these parties.
Yeah, we communicated. So I had the role of kind of distributing that last time at the beginning. So we could like, but here what we have computational analysis, we have symbolic analysis. So I don't know how much interested folks we're gonna get. So let's not, we should have an email, seeing who is interested, and then obviously making sure that there are no overlaps. So I think that's a good point that you're making. Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Stephen is also commenting that in UFMRG working group we can findings are welcome, so that we can. Okay, Stephen, you want to say something?
Sure. The UFMRG is a research group, of course, not a working group.
Yes.
But, if somebody does an analysis and doesn't find any problems, then that's hard to publish. But UFMRG would allow and welcome people to talk about those kind of results as well.
Okay, sounds good. I think that's good. I think it would be very optimistic to expect not people to find anything at all, but still.
Yeah.
Given our experience with ad hoc, right? Every time we had something, there was some new attacks in different threat models. But it's still useful to have the presentation opportunity there as well. So we have a comment from Vaishnavi. I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. I'd be interested in doing the symbolic analysis. Okay, so that's great. So let's keep in touch. As we said, the authors want to do one more revision of this protocol before they declare it as ready for formal analysis. And then we can coordinate. We will send an official email on the mailing list, inviting people to look at the protocol. Do we have any other comments on this?
Marco's in the queue.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. On the point of this slide, this came up after I sent the review version 0, so it appeared in version 1. I also discussed that with Elsa, and the draft now has option 2, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
And I mean that's the correct one today if you want to comply with how message tree is defined in EDOC today. You expect a bystring there. But I think we have good reasons here to prefer something like option 1 instead, and you still be about building a message tree overall as a CBOR sequence, just of 2 bystrings instead of 1. So I think option 1 is the good way to go. Only it's a deviation from the original format, and it should be highlighted very properly. But all in all, I support option 1 here.
All right, thank you, Marco. If there are no other comments or questions, I propose we go ahead. Stephen?
Sure. So the topic was the adoption call for draft Song Lake Array. We sent that out a couple of weeks ago. We got about a dozen responses. Pretty much all except 2 says, yeah, go ahead and adopt it, with no particular detailed comments. We got a comment from Michael Richardson saying, no objection to adoption, but here's some actual comments. And we got some comments via the RATS working group, I guess, which had some technical remarks and no opinions expressed about adoption. So I guess unless somebody wants to yell here now, I think we should consider this one to be adopted. And what I'd suggest is posting a version that's more or less the same text as the current draft, and then going back to address the technical comments from Michael and from Junjiang after the draft IETF Lake version is published. So seems pretty clear. I mean, nobody was against adopting.
All right, thank you, Stephen. So I guess this is an action on Yushuan then. So we will send, of course, to confirm on the mailing list, we'll send an official notification that this draft is adopted then, and then I leave it up to Yushuan to lead these discussions as the editor of this draft with respect to addressing the different comments made by Michael and the RATS people that were made during the adoption call.
Seems about right.
All right. Okay, so the last item on the agenda, so we are a little bit ahead of time, but we can maybe save you some time today, is the IETF 122 planning. So we would like to poll the group to see how many people are planning on attending the IETF 122 meeting and whether you want to meet in Bangkok in person, or whether we should just have an interim meeting sometime before or after the IETF 122 meeting. So please feel free to leave a note in the chat on what you prefer, or to join the queue. Renzo?
Yes, as I said, sadly I won't be for Bangkok, so I will be only remote. But I'm not for or against doing interim. I think the main contributors, now we have many adopted drafts. Depending on them, if they are going, maybe it will be good to help. If not, interim will be enough. But yeah, we should really ping the authors. And Malisha, you are not going, or you don't know yet?
So I'm still not sure. For me personally, I mean, we can discuss this offline, but I'm still not sure. I will try to go. This is my, I would give my best to be there. So in terms of chatting, there is absolutely no problem. This is up to the participants of the working group to decide. So Joran is saying that he has a colliding an event and can attend remotely, maybe. I'm tempted to suggest holding a meeting, even though we might not have great attendance on site, but because there are many working group items, as you said, as you suggested, Renzo, and that we would like to see them progressing and getting the work done. So Marco is confirming, yes. Marco and Rickard. John will be on site. Okay, so that's already several persons. So Okay, so here's the deal. I propose a short session, a 1-hour session in Bangkok, to be that we request as chairs, and then in the worst case we can cancel it later if we gather feedback that there will be that will be few people attending. Does that work for everyone?
Okay, for me.
Sounds good for Marco. Elza is hacking. Okay. Fine for Joran. Okay, so we as chairs will take an action item to request a working group meeting for 1 hour, and then we can combine this as usual, have a hybrid event, a hybrid meeting with some of us being there and some of us being remote. All right, so with that, I guess we will be saving you 15 minutes of your time today. So we're a bit early. Is there any other business with respect to this meeting or lake issues in general? So there is Joran, yes?
Yes, one thing, we got some errata on the CDDL from Brian Sipos. I don't, yeah, we should process that at some point. It's no major thing, just a reminder.
So I believe the errata is now with the authors for verification. I think this is the current status in the state machine. Do you confirm that, or is there some action pending by chairs that I'm not aware?
I suppose it is. I haven't. I only saw the notification, so I suppose
Okay.
the process is that it will go through the authors first, and then yeah.
So just to, you're welcome to discuss this on a list, right? Like the message should have made it to the lake list as well, and so you're welcome to discuss it there. You don't have to wait on the authors. Privately, I had actually also pinged Francesca since she is one of the authors, but I guess she's been busy, so she hasn't replied to me either.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, so pursue the discussion on the list, I suppose. Joran, could you take an action item on that? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So yes, we want to process that, and it's good to see that people are studying the draft and using it. We also had an email from Brian about the implementation status of ad hoc today, and so it's good to see ad hoc being deployed. Do we have any other business? I hear none. So again, I would like to thank Stephen again for sticking with us for almost 5 years, I believe. Thank you, Stephen. A big round of applause for Stephen. And welcome, Renzo. So
thank you. I will be learning a bit, but with you by my side, Malish, I think it will be no problem.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry.
And I know this is a nice working group for now. Let's try to keep it this way.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Yes, I think we were formed in November 2019, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
All right, I give
all.
you back 12 minutes of your time. See you and talk to you in Bangkok during IETF 122. Thank you.
Okay, bye.